So I'm going to talk about open quantum systems, and I will use my timer because I tend to talk a lot. But please stop me if you have questions. It's difficult to do, but I will try to answer to your questions also during the talk. The outline is the following. So I will start with a general introduction about open quantum systems and really something very simple about mathematical notation. So it's just really to set up the notation. So about states, channels, and dynamical maps. Then I will talk about Markovian semi-groups and divisible maps. And finally, about an example of an exact dynamics, so which is not Markovian exactly because we don't do any approximation. And I think this is instructive. We will not explicitly at this stage talk about, or in this talk, in this lecture, talk about non-Markovian open quantum systems, although, yes, my microphone is off, but I guess you will hear, you heard what I said, yes. Yes, no. Does it work? No? Yes? Okay. But in the second talk that I did this afternoon, then I will talk about more in detail about Markovianity and non-Markovianity, and the new, relatively new interpretation of non-Markovianity in terms of information flow and connections, especially connections with reservoir engineering and quantum technologies. So this is the plan, but we begin with the introduction and the mathematical formula. The introduction is general about systems which interact with something else that we call as an environment. So by definition, we call an open system that part of the total system that we are interested in. Okay? And with environment, I will mean something very general here. Sometimes people working in quantum thermodynamics, they associate it to a reservoir, but actually it can be a much more general thing. So we will see, and it can be classical or quantum, as you will see. And one of the reasons why it's interesting to study open quantum system is because lately a number of experiments, or in the last maybe 30 years, a number of experiments where you can very well isolate a single quantum system from noisy situations have been realized. So, and they are the basis actually nowadays of all quantum technologies. And so it is possible to manipulate pretty coherently electronic states, photonic states, or vibrational states of certain things. That could be ions, atoms, molecules, or heavy fields. Although, despite actually this tremendous success, it's been clear always that it is impossible really to consider a quantum system without the sources of noise. So it is important to model noise, and this is what the open quantum system theory does. And also, another thing that I want to stress here is that generally one can have the sources of noise that come from a quantum environment as well as a classical environment. But at the moment we will mostly focus, or here in this talk, we will mostly focus, when we did the example, on quantum environments. Okay? Also, that within the category of quantum environments, you can have bosonic or fermionic environments, stationary or non-stationary environments. Within the stationary environment, you can have thermal environments that are reservoirs, like in thermodynamics, or also non-thermal environments. So the formalism developed here covers all of these situations, really, developed during this lecture. And also, we can generally associate in open quantum system truly irreversible dynamics with infinite environments, so environments with an infinite number of degrees of freedom. But nowadays, also finite environments that could be, for example, spin chains, a single with an n finite number of spins coupled to another spin, for example. These are examples of finite environments. And also in this case, you can describe the interaction of one of the spins with the rest of the spin chain in terms of an open system. So it is a finite environment, so it will have recurrence. It's not a truly reversible situation, but you can use the same formalism and the same ideas. So as I said before, the open system is the one we are interested in. And through the talk, I will discuss mostly about situations in which the state of the system and the state of the environment at the initial time are uncorrelated. So I will always discuss situation if this is the density operator for the system at the initial time. and this is the density operator of the environment at the initial start time, I will always consider factorize initial conditions here, okay? And this is an assumption that is very often done in open quantum system theory. There are a number of tools and techniques to go beyond, so to consider also initial correlations between system and environment. If you are interested, you can ask me and we can discuss them, but this will be our assumption here for a number of reasons. So another question that one may think of is, okay, the environment definitely affects with its presence the behavior of the system, but is the system also affecting the environment? So is the system is the system, yeah, correct, it was right. Is the system also affecting the environment? And of course it is true, and we will see that this happens. We will see an example in which this happens. Generally, the state of the environment changes exactly because of the interaction of the system. In some cases, this change may be negligible, but in some cases it's very relevant and must be taken into account. Okay, so basic notation and basic starting point, we indicate with ρS the density operator, the density matrix for the open system, and ρE the density matrix for the environment. I already mentioned the factorized initial condition. Generally, one of the main goals of open quantum system theory is to study, obviously, the time evolution of the system due to the interaction of the environment, and to do so via an equation of motion for the density matrix of the system. It is known as the master equation. Okay? So what we want to do often is to derive, whenever it is possible, or otherwise to solve, assuming a certain form of the master equation, the equation of motion for the density matrix of the system. And here there is a basic distinction in different types of approaches. One is what I call the phenomenological approach, and the other one is the microscopic approach. In the phenomenological approach, it's been used, for example, a lot in quantum optics, but also in other fields, the master equation is sort of postulated. So people begin with the master equation. They say, let's assume that this is a master equation describing the evolution of the system, and very often this is a specific form, known as the Imdahl-Bruniko-Sapolsky-Sudarshan form, or the Imdahl form of the master equation. And then they try to solve it, numerically or analytically when it's possible. But there is a second approach, that is the microscopic approach, which begins with the full microscopic description of the Hamiltonian for the system, plus the Hamiltonian of the environment, plus the interaction Hamiltonian between system and environment. So in this case, you're really modeling your environment. Okay? So, for example, it could be a quantum field. So you're modeling both the environment and the interaction. And then from this, you start from the evolution. This is generally a closed system. So you start from the full evolution of the closed system, and you trace out, at some point, the dynamics of the environment, because this is what is not relevant. So there are certain assumptions that you do in this process, and eventually you can reach a form of the master equation which is derived by this microscopic modeling. Okay? So this is, in some sense, you have more control in this way because you know the assumptions that you have been doing to derive the master equation, okay? Rather than in the phenomenological case where you're just postulating the master equation. So there are different strategies and approaches. Okay, so reasons why to study, I already mentioned them. It's interesting from fundamental, yes, there is a question.
So, aren't we assuming the fact that, the Hamiltonian can be written in this form? Because maybe in general we have a global Hamiltonian becomes separated into system plus interaction.
Yes, that's a good point. The answer is somehow related to what I mentioned at the beginning when I defined the open system as that part of the system we are interested in. So the thing is that we define, so we have a total Hamiltonian, as you say, and then we say, okay, I am interested in this specific spin, for example, in a spin chain. I want to know the dynamics of this one, subjected to the interaction with all the rest. And this is what somehow sets what the Hamiltonian of the system is. So this defines this split between system and environment. And a very good point is that, obviously, depending on this split, depending on what we consider our system, the master equation can change. So it can change a lot. So for example, if I have a two-level system interacting with a field inside a cavity, I can say this is my system, and all the rest, the cavity field is the environment, and I derive a master equation for this one. And this, for example, we will see it in the final example, is a certain properties, a non-Markovian system. But then I can also say, actually, my system is not just the two-level atom, the two-level spin, whatever, but it's this plus one mode of the cavity. So the mode supported by the cavity. And all the rest of the modes of the electromagnetic field are my environment. And then my system Hamiltonian changes, because I chose a different system, and the master equation becomes completely different. It's a Markovian master equation. So it really depends on what you choose as the system, the final form of the dynamics and of the master equation. Okay. And so the main point is to have a theory that provides a way to treat these problems, which can be related to classical transition or to quantum technologies, since we do need approaches to describe, model, control, and possibly reduce noise in a quantum system if we want to use it for quantum technologies. Now, just a basic notation. I will introduce the notations on quantum state and quantum channels and dynamical map. And these are things that you all know, but it's just really to introduce the notation. So first of all, I will here describe mostly, I would say, I do it for simplicity, but many of the things that I'm saying also hold for infinite dimensional Hilbert spaces. But I will consider finite dimensional Hilbert spaces H, which are isomorphic to Cn. And I will fix an orthonormal basis, which is P1. I will indicate it in this way. And once I do this, then obviously any linear operator can be identified with an n by n complex matrix. And I call the space of these complex matrices MNC. And we do know, of course, that in particular mixed states of quantum systems are represented by the density operator A with the matrix representation, the density matrix rho, which has the property of being positive and raised 1. And again, for notation, I will indicate with Sn, the n square minus 1 dimensional convex set containing all the physical state of a quantum system. Right? Just notation. And of course, you also know that pure states in this formalism are rank 1 projectors, and we indicate that as usual, as in this way. Now, of course, they are extreme elements of the set of space Sn. Well, again, I don't even have to mention this, but you all also know that density matrices can be written in terms of the pure states in this way, where the WKs are probabilities, and you also know very well that this decomposition is highly non-unique. Now, this is notation about states. Notation about channels now, or maps, okay, is the following. So we will consider linear maps. I will come here just to indicate something. Linear maps from the space Mn to Mn. And in particular, a convex subset of these maps that I indicate with Mn plus of C. Okay, and this is the subset of positive matrices, which will play a special role. And there are a number of properties that we should recall of these maps. And in particular, the maps, the linear maps are hermiticity preserving in this relationship, of course, for all A belonging to M and C. Positive, in this case, trace preserving when the trace of the phi of A is equal to trace A, and of course unital in this way. So we will use many of these properties. generally. And yes, of course, it's immediate from what I said before that if phi, the linear map, is positive and trace preserving, then it maps the set of physical states Sn into Sn. So we are always preserving the main properties of the density matrix, that is positivity and trace preservation. And another, one more thing I will define and use is the dual map. So, dual map by star, which is also, of course, defined. And it is defined through the relation phi dual of trace of A is equal trace phi. Okay, for any, obviously for any Okay, so this is about main notation and properties that we will be using to define evolution of states, of quantum states. And of course, we notice already that linear maps, which are positive and trace preserving, transform states, physical states, into physical states. So we can imagine that the time evolution, so the dynamics of an open quantum systems, will be described through these objects, okay, which are positive and trace preserving. In particular, two examples of linear maps which are positive and trace preserving are transposition and the reduction map. And it's, we will focus for a moment on the transposition. It's clear that it is positive because it doesn't change the eigenvalues and the elements of the matrix. However, it will play a key role in highlighting one of the main issues, or not issues, one of the main properties that a physical map should have, that is complete positivity. So, positivity of the map is not enough to guarantee physicality during the time evolution. Okay? And we will see why this is the case by considering, in particular, the example of the transposition. I will just give I will not do all the calculations because there isn't a lot of time, and it's an easy calculation to show that positivity is not enough. But to see why positivity is not enough, we have to consider composite systems. Okay? So instead of having one two-level system as here, we may have two independent, subjected to independent sources of noise. And when we consider two systems described by two Hilbert spaces H1 and H2, both finite dimensional Hilbert spaces, that is n and m are the two dimensions, then we can define the composite map. And if we assume that phi 1 and phi 2 are positive, the question is, will the composite map will be also positive? Because of course we need these in order to describe transformation of the density matrices, so of the states of the open quantum system. And one example, in order to prove that this is actually in general not the case, so therefore positivity is not as sufficient, is not enough really to describe the transformations of the state of an open quantum system, we can consider the simpler case in which The dimensionality of system 1 is 2, and the same for system 2. And we, in particular, consider this specific composite map, where 1, 2 is the identity, that you can rewrite in this block diagonal form, where you define, so if I define here, if I define, if E1 and E2 are the orthonormal basis of system 1, then I'm just defining Eij as Ej, which is an orthonormal basis of M2, so of the space M2. And you can just directly write this block diagonal form, and I will not do it here. I leave you as an exercise. Probably many of you have done already this exercise in your previous courses, but I leave you as an exercise that if you consider in particular the map, the composite map, identity 2, transposition 2, as defined before, you will see that despite the fact that identity and transpositions themselves are positive maps, the composite map is not positive. Okay? So we have a problem because obviously we want to describe composite systems in physics, and so we have to require something more from the maps in order to guarantee physicality during the evolution. Okay, so this is what I just mentioned. So, and what we do in this case is to go to, so extend the Hilbert space and to consider the tensor product of the map phi with the identity k, with k equal from 1 to 3, and so on. And in this case, we will define k positive maps. A map phi is k positive whenever this extension is positive, for all k's. And in particular, sorry, not for all k's, until k. I start again. Is k positive? If it is positive for all k's, okay, from 1 to 3k, and it is completely positive, is k positive, is positive until k, and it is completely positive if it is positive for all k equal to 1, 2, 3, till the end of the forever, okay? Although, luckily, it is not necessary to check positivity really truly for all the values of k, so forever, because for finite dimensional systems with dimension n, it is sufficient to be completely positive. The dynamic, for the map phi to be completely positive, it is sufficient that it is n positive. Okay? Results by Choi. And the second result that we have to recall here, again by Choi, is the fact that in fact it is not even necessary to check positivity or n positivity for all possible maps, for all possible states, but it is sufficient to check whether this map on the state, on this specifically maximally entangled state defined in this way, is positive. So we don't need to really do this operation for all the possible states of our quantum system, but it is sufficient to prove, and actually it's a characterization, so really of complete positivity for this specific maximally entangled state defined in this way. Remember, this is our orthonormal basis. Okay. Now I think I have one more theorem that I want to recall, because I know many of you already know about these things. There is one more theorem that I would like to, actually two more to recall. And actually one more, but this is just a characterization, alternative characterization of completely positive maps. And this is the famous Krauss operator sum representation. So any completely positive map phi can be written, decomposed in terms of the so-called Krauss operators in this form. Okay? So this is the Krauss decomposition is something that we will use also during in considering some of our examples. This is for completely positive, for any completely positive map phi. And moreover, if yes. Okay. So this is for any completely positive map phi, but because very often we will also deal with, or actually always, we will also deal with trace preserving maps, then we have this additional property for the Krauss operator. Yes. So this is a way of characterizing completely positive and trace preserving maps. Finally, yes, the last theorem that I would like to mention is the Stein-Spin dilation theorem that says that any quantum channel, and with quantum channel I mean here a completely positive and trace preserving linear map, any quantum channel phi can be constructed as follows. So we have what we call a system S and an environment E, a little bit like in the formalism that I had here, system plus environment, so the Hilbert space of a system and environment. And we indicate with rho the density matrix of the system, and omega the density matrix of the environment, and U is just unitary operator. Okay? So any quantum channel can be obtained as the partial trace of a unitary on rho tensor omega. However, one thing that is crucial here is that generally, while this is very similar to the microscopic approach I described before, but very, very often, when you think in terms of the dilation, of the unitary dilation, what I call here as an environment doesn't have to have anything to do with the physical environment. Okay? There is no connection between this environment here in the Stein-Spin dilation theorem and the physical environment of a microscopic derivation. The two things are really not the same thing. And also, this is highly unique. Okay, I think that my export notation and recalling of important theorem I'm over. And I can pass to introduce the queen, really, of open quantum system theory, that is the dynamical map. If the Master equation is the king of open quantum system theory, the queen is really definitely the dynamical map. And the dynamical map is just a family of completely positive and trace preserving maps. I indicated with lambda t. So it's a family of quantum channels parameterized by t, where t is time. Okay? So it's defined in this way. So it's not just one, but it's a family of quantum channels. And it is describing basically the time evolution of an initial state. So initial state rho is evolved according to the dynamic. And there is a connection, of course, between the dynamical map and the Master equation. We will see it in a moment, but the connection is through the generator Lt of the dynamical evolution. So the Master equation can be written simply in terms, this is the time derivative. Lt is the generator of the evolution, and sometimes I call it also Lindblad, Lewillian, it has several names. It gives really the form, the operatorial form of the Master equation. And this is obviously connected to the dynamical evolution through the formal solution of the equation for the dynamical map itself. So this is why the Master equation is an equation of motion for the density matrix has this form. The formal way of writing the equation of motion for the density matrix, for the dynamical map is the following, again, Lt is the generator. And obviously this equation has a formal solution that has the following form. So t is the chronological ordering operator, and then we just have the exponential of the integral between 0 and t of L tau d tau. Now, a little bit of comments on this notation. First of all, is this general? I mean, when I introduce a generator LT of this form, okay, is this the most general form of master equation? It is not. This form of master equation is time local, is local in time, does not contain any integrals or convolutions, so it is a time local form. And it is not the most general form of master equation, but it is pretty general. And I will not say how much general it is, but it is pretty general. Of course, we are assuming here two things. The first assumption is that the initial state of the density matrix, so the initial row, uniquely determines the evolution of the density matrix. And we are also assuming that the equation of motion for the density matrix is linear. But we will mostly dealing and describing this type of master equation. And obviously also, let's say that a special role, maybe even the main complication when one wants to solve or to study this type of dynamical maps is this chronological operator order. This is obviously, this expression is defined through the Dyson series. So what we mean with this expression, of course, is the following. And so we are still working in the finite dimensional hyperspaces, and then we have 0, t, 1, and 1. And so on, where T1 is smaller than T2, smaller than T3, and so on. Okay, so this is the meaning of these things. And obviously this chronological ordering is what is causing most of the problems here in solving this type of dynamics. Okay, now I just introduce you without any comments what is known as the most general form and the most popular form of a master equation. That is the Lindblad-Guarini-Kosakowski-Sudarshan master equation. And this is the form of the generator of the Lindblad-Guarini-Kosakowski-Sudarshan master equation. So it is described in terms of a unitary, it contains a unitary part that is the H is the Hamiltonian of the system only here, and a dissipative part containing these decay operators, sometimes are also known as the jump operators. One thing to say about this form of the master equation is that sometimes if some of you are more of a quantum optical background, it is written slightly differently. I mean, this is really the same, only that the time dependent, not time dependent, so the decay rate somehow appear here, so in front of this expression. So I will write it for those of you who are not used to. So I write only the dissipative part for the quantum optical people, generally as this form. So I have some over k, gamma k. Okay. And this is the other commutator. And generally, well, let's call it V tilde because it's not the same as before, simply because I singled out the decay rates. And this, so in some sense they are incorporated into the operators, but generally, very often they are written in this form, and they are the so-called decay rate. They describe dissipation or losses, and they are positive constant numbers. So generally, if you think in terms of the master equation microscopic derivation, so as I said before, one of the two approaches is related to deriving microscopically from a model of this type, the master equation, then in this case, in the microscopic derivation, what you would need to do in order to obtain a master equation of this form are approximations that are related to the following thing. The first one is we copy that. They are known as the Born-Markov approximation. So the first, within the Born-Markov approximation, the first point is weak coupling between system and environment. So you assume that the system and the environment are coupled weakly. Then you assume that the correlation time between related to the presence of the environment in the system is very short, so it dies quickly. So correlations between system and environment are basically averaged out in the dynamics. And then you also assume the rotating wave approximation. So there are a number of different time scale relations between main time scales that have to be respected in order to derive the master equation. And I'm not going to do the derivation of this master equation here because it would take too long. But there are techniques, for example, the Nakajima-Swansky or time convolution as projection operator techniques that just tell you ways how to derive it and also how to stop before deriving the fully Markovian master equation. This is associated to Markovian master equations. And I will give references at the end of the lecture, so you can find these things. Why this master equation is so important and so widely used? Well, reason number one is that if I deal with this master equation, I'm always guaranteed that the time evolution of the system is physical. So this means that any solution of this master equation is a legitimate, appropriate solution. So meaning that any solution of this master equation is a rho that is physical. So it's positive and trace one. Right? So it's the same thing as saying that this is the generator of a dynamical map which is completely positive and traceless. So basically, people just used it because, well, of course, because it describes several correctly several quantum optimal, for example, systems, but mostly because it is safe to use. Okay? You can always have a solution which is physical. Now, are there questions at this point? Yes?
So one more assumption of this time marker of the master equation is it also that this L of t is not dependent on the initial state.
Of course, L of t does not depend, and should not depend on the initial state. And as I was saying before, yes, generally, however, we assume that the initial state uniquely defines the dynamics. So if I give you as initial condition rho 0, then you solve this, and using the initial condition, you have rho t.
But generally, could be the initial state, I mess up the environment, but you would be the
Yeah.
so that would depend on the initial state.
Yes, that's a good point, but then what you would need to do is to release this. So, sorry, this is a factorized initial condition. So I'm assuming here that this is my starting point, and there is no change. So this, I'm fixing this. Otherwise, you would need, but then there are ways of doing it, actually. Yes?
So you're not assuming any kind of group structure on dynamical mass relative to this.
For the Markovian master equation, we will see it in a moment. It's the same group, but I will show it in a moment when we think it's here. Exactly. We will describe a little bit more the Markovian semigroups and the divisible maps. Yes. Okay, so now we make, let's say, a simplified. We consider a little bit of a simpler situation. Instead of having a time-dependent generator, we consider the case in which there is no time dependencies in the generator. So obviously, for this case, everything simplifies. The equation of motion for the dynamical map simplifies, and we already have a simpler form, which clearly does not need chronological ordering for the solution of this equation, so for the expression of the dynamical map. And here it appears immediately that one of the properties of the dynamical map is exactly this semigroup property for the dynamical. It's a semigroup because, well, the inverse generally, the inverse is not even CP. The inverse of the dynamical map generally is not even CP in a general sense. So, and this leads us directly to what is the most famous theorem of open quantum system, that is the Korenius-Sapolsky-Slushin-Miller theorem, that is the following. If L is a linear map, then L generates a legitimate or physical dynamical semigroup if and only if it has this structure. Okay? So there is this unitary part, and then phi here is completely positive, and pi star is the dual. Now, what this tells is that first of all, what do we mean once again with legitimate or physical dynamical maps? We are just meaning here that yes, we are just meaning that it's completely positive. Completely positive and trace perceptible. So the structure of the generator for completely positive and trace perceptible semigroup is the following. So it's fixed. So it's somehow it is very powerful because it allows, as I said, to directly work with master equations, being sure that everything will remain physical. And this is a little bit different when compared to the formula that I gave before. But if you use the Krauss representation, of course, so for phi, so phi is completely positive, so you just use the Krauss representation for phi, and you will obtain the same form of master equation in terms of the decays that I wrote here. It's just an alternative way. And then here I want to present at least 2 or 3 different ways of writing the Dirichlet master equation, simply because so you are used to seeing it in different forms. So they are all equivalent. So, of course, the main question, one of the main questions of open quantum system theory is, can you also give me 10 minutes for one? Okay. That's not the main question. Is, okay, how about going beyond the form of Markovian dynamical semigroups? Okay. Dynamical semigroups are a class of dynamical maps, but definitely not the most general class. How about beyond that class? Can we have a characterization of the generator, hence of the master equation, for something that is more general than a semigroup? And the answer to this question is not known in full generality. So this is a problem which has not been solved in full generality. And this is also one of the main problems when dealing with non-Markovian systems, because very often you just do not have, so you really have to be very careful that if you have a non-Markovian master equation, especially if it's given phenomenologically, that the solution is physical, because there is no theorem that tells me which structure is the right structure for the master equation, to have a physical evolution. However, so it would be great if one of you would solve this problem. And I encourage you all to try. It's a complicated problem. Probably it is impossible to solve it in full generality. However, there are some partial answers for certain classes of more general than semigroup. For certain classes of dynamical maps and generators. Of course, the problem is known for the time-independent generators, because we know that this is the Korenius-Sapolsky case. So in this case, we have a semigroup, and we know it, we know the form. It is also, we do have some partial knowledge of what happens in case of commutative dynamics, and I will describe it in the following. And then I will, we also know something about the time-dependent generators and divisible generators. So we do know something, not a full characterization, but something for these 2 cases. And now we will describe these 2 cases. Okay, so we start with the commutative dynamics first. So commutative dynamics is defined through this commutativity of the generators. And in this case, if you assume commutativity of the generators, then Actually, I think this is wrong. I'm sorry. I mean, this is right. I think this is wrong. This is simply lambda t lambda u. I think. I believe that the first one should be this one, but okay, I think it's the same, obviously. So let me think. Sorry, see the same thing. All right, okay. You see, I do this silly things too. But okay. So yes, this is the computer division. What happens in this case is that it's simple to see. If you write down the Dyson series, you will notice it immediately. It's very simple to see that you do not need the chronological ordering anymore, and this simplifies everything. This really simplifies everything. And indeed, you can also find the solutions, and we will show an example. You can find the solutions for easily for the time evolution of the density matrix. And so it's easier to discuss the properties. Now, for this specific case of the commutative dynamics, then you will you have these partial results that says that what you actually have to look is the integral of the generator Lt dt from 0 to t. So you look at this object, and if this object has the structure of a Roringo-Sapkowski-Sudarshan-Lindner generator, then you can conclude that the dynamical map is completely positive and transversal. It's not an if condition, but at least this form of the structure guarantees complete positivity. So this is obviously more general than assembly group. This is not assembly group. Okay? You have time-dependent behavior. However, you can directly obtain, you guarantee that it works. And I think I do have one example. Actually, one is here, and then we do even a more specific example. And this is one example of that you can consider of commutative, perhaps the most general commutative dynamics. So you can write it in terms. So you isolate the unitary part, and you call it L0, and then there is a time-dependent coefficient, and then you may have different forms, different terms of generators, such that, however, they all commute each other. And eventually you will obtain, this happens actually for all time data including 0. So they all have this structure. So the operatorial structure is the Roringo-Sapkowski-Sudarshan-Lindner structure. However, there are these time-dependent coefficients, which may be also negative. Okay? So you have some time-dependent coefficients. The structure is Roringo-Sapkowski-Sudarshan structure with time-dependent coefficients that can be negative. And in this case, you can see, first of all, that it is simple to solve for the dynamical map in general, and the dynamical map will be simply obtained as the products of these exponential terms, where the coefficients A1, An, and so on are just the integrals between 0 and t. The first one is the integral between 0 and t of the time-dependent coefficient of the unitary part, and the others are the integrals of all the other time-dependent coefficients. So you can directly, you don't have typological order, and so you can directly solve it in this way. And it is a consequence of this theorem that I mentioned before, that this system, this dynamic is completely positive if and only if these coefficients are not negative. Okay? The integrals are not negative. So you can have situations in which the time-dependent decay rates are negative. They can take negative values. Remember, in the Lindner case, they are always positive. In this case, they can take negative value. However, complete positivity here is guaranteed if the integral of these coefficients, whatever I call them, 0 to t, is positive. So this is already something that can be useful, because we are extending the realm of what we can safely consider beyond Markov. Yes. And at this point, I will conclude here. I still have maybe 5 minutes. Yes. So I will conclude with a very important second class, that is related to divisible dynamical maps. So let's introduce divisibility at this point. In order to do this, I will identify with VTS, I will call VTS the propagator for the dynamical map. So this is the dynamical map from 0 to x, this is the dynamical map from initial time to t, and by definition, we call a dynamical map divisible if this propagator is completely positive for any time t and any time s. Okay? It is obvious by the definition that the propagator is just obtained in the following way. So this is just the composition of the map until t and the map until s inverted. Okay? This is just by obvious definition. However, generally, the inverse of the dynamical map may not exist. So I'm assuming here that the dynamical map is invertible. And clearly, even if it exists, the inverse of the dynamical map is not necessarily completely positive. So the propagator, or better, the dynamical map can be completely positive and preserving, both in the case in which the propagator is completely positive, which is what we call divisible dynamics, and in the case in which the propagator is not completely positive. That's also a physical situation. The propagator may not be completely positive simply because the inverse may not be completely positive. Lambda t always is by definition, but the inverse of the dynamical map may not be completely positive, so the composition may or may not be completely positive. And so we have situations, physical situations, in which the propagator is completely positive, and this is divisible dynamics. A physical situation in which we lose this complete positivity of the propagator, and this is the case in which we call non-divisible dynamics. And this is a very straightforward generalization of the semi-group property. Okay, this is the most straightforward generalization. So this is if you want, not if you want, actually, I will define now and also in the next lecture Markovian dynamics as a divisible dynamics. And I will talk about Markovian semigroup when I deal with the Markovian semigroup. Now, it is, so lambda t, so the dynamical method is divisible if and only if it can be written in the Gorini-Kosakowski-Sudarshan form with time-dependent coefficients, where these are our causal operators. So another way of doing this or considering this that I will be using a lot in the following is this. So if I write the form of the master equation highlighting the role of the decay rate, again, please note that this notation here is not as general as that one. Okay? Obviously, you can have operators here which contain the time dependencies, but you cannot isolate it simply in this way. So this is a specific class with respect to that one. But because I will consider it a lot, I mean, I also, sorry, these are obviously decays of T. In the Markovian semigroup case, these are positive constants. In the divisible case, they are time dependent, but they are still positive. Right? Hence, when one of these, it's sufficient that one of these at a certain time becomes negative, then I lose divisibility, in the sense that the dynamics is non-divisible. I will call it non-Markovian, but it may still be physical. Because the dynamical map can still be completely positive and physical. Should I finish it? Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
5 minutes for questions.
For questions. Okay. So this I will just to wrap up now. What we will do in the second lecture is to explore, or in the second talk, is to explore much more the non-divisibility, non-Markovianity world. And to do so, we will need to be, again, either using exact models. If a model is exact, meaning exact microscopic models. When I have an exact microscopic model, I have an exact solution. I'm not making any approximation, so obviously the dynamics is always physical. Okay. I cannot lose physicality if I have an exact approach. Or otherwise, meaning completely positive and preserving dynamical method. Or otherwise, we will have to always be very careful when we use phenomenological master equation that they are also always physical. So if I have a master equation of this form with some negative decay rates, and I've not derived it microscopically, so I'm just giving it to you, well, I'm not sure that the solution, I can always solve it, perhaps, maybe numerically, but I'm not sure that the solution is physical. So, and generally, to check complete positivity is a hard task. You've seen the Joy theorem. I mean, it's impossible in infinite dimensional universe. Okay? So in the second part, we will focus more on the non-Markovianity and non-divisibility because it seems to be, for two reasons. The first reason is that, well, it is the general case, and Markovianity comes from approximations. And the second one is, nowadays, there is a lot of interest in so-called reservoir engineering, so modifying the properties of the environment in order to induce certain dynamics in the system. And generally, when you do reservoir engineering, you're generally inducing your Markovianity in the dynamics. So that's all. And now I think we have time for questions. 2 minutes, maybe.
Questions. So sometimes it's okay to use a dynamics that is not positive, but the observable you're interested in is well approximated. Say, well, if you force positivity, maybe you become less accurate in some specific quantity.
Okay, but then I would say that generally, if the dynamics is not positive, loses positivity at some point, then I would say that in any case you should be aware of the fact that the model is wrong at some point. So there is something wrong in the model. So you're modeling, you have a theoretical model which doesn't match actually with the physical situation, because of course physically we do know that we have to describe a system with positive density matrix, not physical. So I don't know what I would do. What would you do?
I don't know. You take examples of you make measurements on a state that you know is separable, but then you force it to be positive, and you can move it in cycle time.
I guess it's probably a case-by-case situation. I mean, quite scary. Well, I mean, here in this case, when you lose actually more than positivity, but complete positivity, with the assumption of factorized initial condition, you can definitely say the model is wrong. So there is no way around.